We just heard about some of the dramas that people can get into while overseas, but even with travel insurance, many Aussies are finding themselves in serious trouble. Adelaide man Leith Stewart fell very sick in Bali and needed to be brought home for urgent medical care. But his insurance company refused to pay out, saying it was due to a pre-existing condition, leaving his family with a $100,000 debt.
It's an horrific story, but it's not uncommon. So how can you protect yourself? Knowing what you're covered for could save you and your family a huge financial burden. Consumer Affairs commentator Joe Ucukalo joins us now with more. Welcome to the show, Joe. There's been about a 30% increase in travel insurance complaints. Right, why is that?
I'd like to think it's because more people are challenging the system and saying, hang on, I should really be covered. But in reality, what happens is people make the claim and then discover that they're not covered. So most of those complaints are around an exclusion, saying the policy was never going to cover you anyway. The second most popular, pre-existing medical conditions.
Right, but do you think insurance companies purposely make it hard for people to understand their policies? I mean, what gets me so angry is they're more than happy to take your money, and take your premium, but yet they're very reluctant to pay out.
Yes, and it is a tricky one. I mean, every person and every holiday is different. So what they're trying to do is put all those, different scenarios into writing, and it gets very complicated for us to read through the terms and conditions, but they are there in the PDS for us to look at.
Okay, in the case we mentioned in the intro, Leith Stewart, now his claim was refused based on a pre-existing condition. Now we're all asked this question when we take out travel insurance. How does that cause, those sorts of clauses affect the insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. Pre-existing medical conditions is a big one, not only for the person travelling, but say it's a death in the family of somebody else. We've had the case where the person's travel insurance wouldn't cover variations to travel because their family member had that pre-existing condition.
So someone's overseas, a family member dies back home, they need to come back urgently.
Yes.
But because the family member who passed away at home had a pre-existing condition.
This is why it's a big deal. So it's not only your conditions, but anybody who might be sick at the time you're leaving and you'd want to come back. It's really difficult because we book these holidays, up to 12 months in advance, sometimes longer. And that's why it's important to buy your insurance when you buy your tickets, so that you're covered from that date.
Okay, what are some of the main exclusions that people need to know about?
So what you might not be aware of is you're not covered if you're drunk. So we all like to go on holidays and sometimes we drink too much. Say we're doing dangerous things, those extreme holidays, or perhaps we go and do some charity work. These are the typical exclusions that most people don't think will cause them issue if they do need to make a claim.
Is that just volunteer work? That's a tough one.
Or any heavy lifting. If you decide to get a bit physical, Larry, you might be excluded from your travel insurance.
So when you talk about being drunk or, over the limit, whatever, is that just about riding mopeds and cars, or is that about walking out of a bar and falling over if you're drunk?
So the true test around whether you're going to be covered for travel insurance is, do you maintain control of yourself? Yeah. So when we get drunk, generally we're not, in control anymore. So we need to always, when we're travelling, try to minimise any risk for any of these things happening. So if we're drunk, we potentially expose ourselves to scenarios that we wouldn't ordinarily do.
Okay, before we go, we've got a couple of graphics here. Your recommendations for people looking to get travel insurance, what would they be?
So number one thing is make some time to buy the travel insurance when you buy the tickets, because that's when you have a look to see what world events are going on. Have a look at the Smart Traveller website. Make sure that emergency payment is looked after for you. Some hospitals overseas demand upfront payment, so have a look at that clause and have a look for trip cancellations. What will be covered if your trip is cancelled?
Wow, you get on that plane with your little certificate, you think I'm covered, and you're probably not across a lot of that. Thank you, Joe.
Pleasure.
We'll talk to you soon.